Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss whether Sunak has completely flipped his lid in abandoning net zero policies in a desperate attempt to distinguish his party from Labour. I mean, yes, it will do that, but so would promising to beat up 5 puppies live on television every day and with possibly similar electoral results. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So it's quite interesting. We're about a year on from Liz Truss's descent into complete madness. And I've been watching Rishi Sunak meander aimlessly towards the general election, getting almost everything wrong, and seeing the consequences of that reflected in polls which give Labour the fabled 20-point lead. But up until now, I've just judged Rishi Sunak to be basically crap, rather than mad. Now I may have to revise that opinion. It's not even like he at least learned from Boris Johnson and appointed supportive ministers to cabinet. His education secretary seems to be on a mission to completely crush the Tory vote as well. Her latest defence of the collapsing school building scandal is to say, actually, the kids prefer to have lessons in porter cabins as opposed to proper school buildings. But this decision to abandon net zero is mind-boggling, even by the recent standards of the Conservatives. In July, YouGov polled people on support for achieving net zero by 2050. This is the goal. This is the commitment from the Conservatives, manifesto commitment. 71% of the public say they supported it to 16% against. Rishi Sunak has decided to stand with the 16. My goodness me. But popular opinion, of course, matters not in first past the post system. I say it often enough. But even amongst 2019 Conservative voters, the support is 63% for to 29% against. And as I always say in situations like this, that 29% against are very likely the sort of voters who are going to back the Tories anyway. Their target voters are in that 63% in favour of net zero by 2050. This is madness. Like, even without this latest policy brain fart from Sunak, it was obvious that Labour had a much stronger offer on net zero. The distinction was already clear for voters, and it was going to get even clearer by the election. The Tories talk about net zero by 2050, but the news is always full of failures and how difficult it will be to meet that target now. Sunak is claiming that he's still committed to net zero by 2050, but that he'll be abandoning or delaying the policies needed to achieve it. Now, okay, voters can sometimes fall for some fairly ridiculous cons at election time, particularly when the mainstream media are pushing it. Oh, and the Tory press are absolutely pushing this. Oh, they're loving it. But people aren't this stupid. According to a report in The Guardian, Sunak's going to be announcing this on Friday, which means, of course, he can avoid any questions in PMQs today if Starmer or anyone else raises it, and I think at least someone will. If there are any questions about net zero today in Parliament, Sunak can just deflect by saying, well, you have to wait for my speech on Friday. Which will be another attack on parliamentary sovereignty, by the way, because new policies, and this would be a very new policy, are supposed to be announced to MPs first. You're supposed to announce them in the House of Commons. Then the media. If Sunak does deflect questions in this way today, he will be basically saying that he is refusing to announce policies to Parliament, even when they're asking about them, because he wants to wait to announce them to the media first. And nothing will be done about that because only Tory MPs can sanction him for doing so. Mind you, you'd think a fair few Tory MPs will be minded to at least try and persuade him against this speech on Friday. Yes, we understand the Tories are going to attempt a have our cake and eat it strategy. They're going to claim that they're still going to achieve net zero on time whilst delaying some of the measures that they will claim just add to household bills. But I just don't think their target voters are going to buy it. And I think quite a few Tory MPs know that. The bottom line is we are already looking like missing our net zero target as it is because the Tories have been dragging their feet since 2010. Sunak is promising to stop pursuing several of the means by which we're going to achieve it. And there's nothing in the news about him being expected to announce any new measures to compensate. It's not like he's saying, oh, we think that's not a very good way to achieve net zero. We're going to drop that and adopt this instead. No, none of that. Just drop this. And to my mind, this hits both of the Conservatives' coalition of voters. Like in the traditional Tory heartlands, the concern will be for the environmental harm being caused by not taking climate change seriously. In fact, it's in these areas where the infrastructure is already much more advanced. They're already more used to it. They're getting on with it. They don't see it as a great problem to carry on. But in the red wall type areas, a bit different. The concern will be for the manufacturing jobs, which are increasingly in green tech. Like America's really gone for it and the rest of the world is moving in the same direction. Labour have aligned their green agenda very strongly with the new manufacturing jobs of the immediate future. Starmer wants a meeting with Biden to talk about this very thing. You know, Labour are talking with Democrats to learn lessons, to make sure that we can get it right first time. And Sunak's announcement is going to imperil those jobs. And I think Tory MPs know it. Simon Clarke, no stranger to mad ideas himself. He's a strong supporter of Liz Truss, right? He wrote a Twitter thread yesterday when this news came out, which was a very obvious attack on the notion of scaling back on net zero. Proper panicking he was. Now, Clarke is an MP in the northeast of England, around Middlesbrough, one of the areas which would suffer investment loss if the government pursues this backwards-looking nonsense. In fact, if you read the thread, Clarke is crapping himself at the potential damage that Sunak's speech is going to cause to investment in his area. Like, he's already looking in serious trouble for the election. No one really thinks he's got much of a chance of retaining his seat. The last thing he needs is to be made to stand on a manifesto of stripping away future investment in Middlesbrough. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like I can just say, well, I just don't know what Sunak's advisors are smoking with this pig's ear of a new policy direction, because I've never felt that they were really steering a credible plan. I've said so many times, and the polling results back that up. Like, you know, the Tories keep saying, oh, Labour's poll lead is soft. Starmer's not enthusing the public. And it's like, OK, there's good reasons to say both of those things. But if both of those things are true, how on earth have the Tories made zero ground on that supposedly soft Labour lead then? No movement at all this year. We're into September. No movement at all. 20-point lead at the start of the year. It's about 20-point lead now. It's like the beginner's guide to politics. Like, yes, the Tories do need to distinguish themselves from Labour, true. And because they are the incumbent and because they're behind in the polls, they are the ones who have to force the issue. Also true. In theory, Labour don't have to push their differences as much. There are plenty of voters out there who want to vote for a difference, but there are also plenty of voters out there who will sort of vote for the same sort of thing, but without the incompetence. So yes, the Conservatives have to make most of the running here. But Labour have been happy to talk about their very different policies. They've even been happy to talk about the unmentionables in the last week, asylum and Brexit. But what these kindergarten political strategists don't seem to get is, doesn't matter what the Tories' offer is if people don't believe they'll deliver it. That was Labour's problem in 2019. They liked the offer, didn't think it would be achieved. So then they won't be attracted to the offer. Sunak's one job was to show that he could deliver in the 2 years he had before he had to call an election. And he was in government. He had the power to do it. Without any evidence of delivery, even the shiniest policy proposals will be labelled as pie in the sky. Well, you've had 2 years to deliver something, you delivered nothing. But even if Sunak was demonstrating an ability to deliver, what you don't do is offer to do the opposite of your opponents just for the sake of it. Like, Labour are presenting their net zero plans as a major policy platform, and it's very much tied in with their industrial strategy. The big carrot being dangled is jobs, better jobs. They're doing this not just because it's the right policy, but because the public are seeing the value. Sunak is going ahead with the polar opposite stance just for the sake of being different to Labour. But he's disconnecting himself from target voters, and his MPs know that. The reaction was immediate as well. It wasn't just from a random Red Wall MP. The chair of Ford UK absolutely blasted this decision on the basis that it's throwing their UK investment plans into complete turmoil. They've been saying, look, we've had these plans, you had this commitment, we've gone with it, we've done all this investment, now you're throwing it, you're undermining it all. You know, Ford have been conducting their business along the lines set out by the Conservatives. And remember, this target was supported by Labour. So as far as they were concerned, it didn't matter who was going to win the election. This commitment was still going to be pursued by whichever government. This is the business certainty that the Tories keep banging on about. Manufacturers understand the lay of the land and organise themselves accordingly. Now Rishi Sunak is getting set to announce that all those investments are going to be thrown into flux. Basically, Sunak hasn't even made this speech yet, and he's already had both business and his own MPs against him. You know, there are times when something seems ludicrous, and I have to pause and think to myself, am I missing something? Especially since COVID, I think, you know, the old brain fog, is my cognitive function still impaired? Am I missing something? But no, this is madness. In fact, it's Liz Truss levels of madness. It's trying to do what history has already shown to be a failed experiment. And as I say, the reaction from all quarters was immediate. It's madness. I've been saying for some time, what Sunak needed to do, identify something that the public wanted and deliver it. For example, they're all delighted that inflation's a bit lower than expected this month. It was expected to go up a bit, it's come down a bit. But it's still more than 3 times higher than it's supposed to be, than what's considered acceptable. Spain got their inflation down to that acceptable 2% point by making sure energy prices came down when the costs of producing energy did. We could have done the same thing. People called for Sunak to do the same thing. Sunak could have, with the stroke of a pen, done that. Wouldn't have fallen as low as Spain. We've got other issues such as Brexit, but it would have fallen much lower than it is now. He'd actually be able to claim that our inflation's now pretty low, because there are still a lot of countries out there, comparable economies with high inflation, because they're also prioritising profits over the cost of living. That was an easy thing that Sunak could have done. Didn't want to. Now he's choosing to adopt a position that even his own MPs know is bonkers. Last year, we were wondering if Liz Truss was a secret Lib Dem sleeper agent, like she'd been a Liberal Democrat in her youth. And there she was a year ago destroying the Tory party. I wonder who Rishi Sunak is a secret supporter of, because it's clearly not the Conservative Party. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.